YouTube? This is the Magnus, bringing you another Total War Warhammer online ladder battle. That's right, we've got another one for you. This time, I'm playing the Warriors of Chaos, and my opponent chose the Dwarfs, going with a very different build than we saw last time. I've got 4 Chaos Warriors with great weapon, 2 Chosen with great weapons to kind of form a impenetrable center. I also have 2 Aspiring Champions. And then over on the left flank, I brought 1 Gorebeast Chariot, which is one of my favorite units to use against the Dwarfs. On the other side, I have some Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes. Now, usually I like to bring a little artillery against the Dwarfs to kind of force them to move and be able to trade from a distance. But with this map, with the hill, I just, didn't want to deal with it, I guess. So I went with something a little different. I brought a Chaos Sorcerer of Shadows with just the Pit of Shades. I wanted to see how it would do against the Dwarfs. And then a Chaos Lord on the Chaos Dragon. My opponent with the Dwarfs here, he's got a front line of Dwarf Warriors, and there are 5 of those. And then behind he has 2 Rune Smiths, 1 Rune Lord, a very common composition and a very tough nut to crack when you have all those abilities that these guys have. Longbeards with great weapons, I believe he brought 3 of those, yes, and the Grumbling Guard. And, a 4th one here in the back, another Longbeard with great weapons, so a lot of armor piercing, good idea. 1 Miner, the Goblobber, and here in the center, he has 2 Ranger with great weapons. So let's see how this plays out. So as you see, I deployed the Gorebeast Chariot over on this flank, so I'm going to send them up into the woods. And on the other flank, hidden in the woods, I have the Marauder Horsemen. I'm going to try to bring them up and harass from the side or the rear. In the meantime, I have my infantry go ahead and move to the top of the hill, and my flying corps is going to go up and see if we can't find any sort of an advantage to exploit while we're waiting for our infantry to get up there. So, because unlike the Forsaken, these Chaos Warriors are Chosen, a lot tankier, but a lot slower. And the idea with the Aspiring Champions, of course, is a leadership boost to the center. Plus, they do magical damage, which means they get to avoid armor. I'm going to put down a Pit of Shades here between 2 Longbeards with great weapon. I should have just put it on top of one of the units. And generally, I don't use it until there's an engagement. But since he was getting some artillery shots on me, I was like, oh, I'll do something here. So it does do some damage, but with the Dwarfs being resistant to magic in general, it doesn't tear them up too bad. It just kind of makes a bloody mess out of a decent bit of them there. So I've got my flyers poking around in the woods. I wanted to see what his complete composition was. I get to see these Rangers with great weapons, and I see these got some infantry in the woods, because I knew what I could see initially was not his complete army. I bring in the Marauders to harass, and they do a pretty good job of putting some more damage on these Longbeards, but his Miners manage to chase them away. Now, what I would have liked to have done is something like this, but being rusty, my micro's not that great, and I've got the Chariot to deal with, the Flyers, and I'm trying to get my infantry lined up the way I want them. So I just kind of put these guys on the avoid skirmish phase type deal thing, and so they just keep chucking throwing axes at these poor Miners who will never, ever reach them. So getting back to the main part of the battle, over here, you'll see I bring my Flyers down to do some harass and to provide a little bit of screen for the Chariot. I don't want him to just be able to focus on it. He's going to go crashing through some of his infantry in the woods, get out of the woods, which I wanted to do onto the plains, and starts plowing through these Rangers. They're going to be able to hurt it a decent bit if I leave it sitting still, so I keep trying to pull it through. And you'll see they're going through the front line here. I also want to break his line a little bit as my infantry's coming in, so that he's disrupted, not quite coherent as far as his lines, while my guys are tearing around back here. So I bring the Flyers down. I got to start getting rid of his leadership, because all this Rune Smith nonsense is just a bit much. So I go after them, and finally my infantry starts to reach his line. I've got a lot of guys with great weapons, which are going to, cut through these tin can warriors pretty quickly. I throw down another Pit of Shades, this time over his Rangers and some other units he has in the center. Again, in this case, it's not just doing damage, it's providing a ton of disruption to his line, so they're not well formed up. You're going to see the Chariot continues to rip through his guys, but it's getting beat up pretty good. Is racking up the kills, but is going to run shortly. Over on the other flank here, you'll see the Runesmith is just about dead. The flying squad did a pretty good number on him. And out at the far extreme, we've got our Chaos Warriors with great weapons. The Dwarf Warriors, really not a match for them. The Grumbling Guard definitely are. And any of these great weapon like Longbeards can put up a decent fight. But a lot of them have been softened up from either my Chariot or my Magic or my Marauder Horsemen, who are still putting on the miners here. So now I decide to go after his Rune Lord, but then I see I'm going to get hit in the back by these darn Rangers. Can't have that. They're going to do way too much damage, so I'm going to go ahead and squash them here a bit with the flying crew, especially since my Chariot had retreated. I'm going to be pulling it back into battle soon. But you'll see his Runesmith is using all of his abilities, the Rune Lord's using abilities, and it just really makes the Dwarfs a tough nut to crack. Thankfully, though, I've got a pretty tanky army here, so I can go the long haul with them. And you're going to see this time I go after his Runesmith, just trying to harass his leadership as much as I can. I made a mistake over here. I thought I had killed this Runesmith. I didn't. He's going to come back and start using runes, so that's going to cost me. Not a good thing. Out here on the extremities, still riding around with Marauder Horsemen. I still have them in skirmish. I notice it, so I'm going to turn around and just tell them to go ahead and charge these miners and finish them off. Like I said, not the best use of them. My Chariot reformed, so I'm going to use it to crash through his infantry. You can see he's having leadership issues as they're really dying here in the center, where I focused on breaking them. On the right flank, this unit of Chaos Warriors is pretty beat up. This one's still in good shape, though, and is going to get a nice rear charge and get into them. You're going to see the Chariot come ripping through, too. That's going to put even more pressure on the right flank, and even the Runesmith is starting to doubt this is a good idea to stick around. I have one unit of Chosen working on his Rune Lord, but they're getting pretty badly beat up. But those guys fight to the end just about, and that's always a good thing. My flying squad is just hovering a second because I had them finish off that Runesmith over here. Now they're going to dive down and try to help finish off the Grumbling Guard, and you'll see he has some infantry that retreated. He hasn't pulled them back in, but quite frankly, they wouldn't do a whole lot because they're all but dead health-wise. So you can see the balance bar is pretty heavily in my favor. I was kind of surprised because when I saw the army that he brought, and with as rusty as I am, I wasn't sure I'd be able to pull it off, but looks like we got a good chance of winning here. I tried to get my Chariot into his the last of his Rangers here that are still, using their ranged weapon. Wasn't able to finish them off. Instead, it's the Chariot that gets finished off. But you'll see there's just a Runesmith, the Rune Lord here, a little bit of Rangers. He just doesn't have the men left to really deal with what's going on here. So we're just going to really focus on the center here, try to destroy his leadership and put this thing to bed. I don't like these Rangers firing in here, but there's not very many of them. They were very low on ammo. Now they're out. So they weren't as big of a concern as they normally would be. Back here you can see the aspiring champions and everything finally break the rest of his men, and that is the end. The Dwarfs are done. Good game to my opponent. A very fun battle, and I thought he brought a pretty darn tough composition to deal with. So let's take a look at the tail of the tape. The Chaos Lord did well, so did the Chaos Sorcerer Shadows. They provided a lot of harassment and some punch on his leadership and still managed to kill a decent amount of men. The Aspiring Champions, not a lot of kills, but they provided great leadership, and as you see, they were just a really tough nut for the Dwarfs to crack, especially since they were behind the main line for a decent bit of the fight. I mean, they were in the fight, but slightly behind, like mixed in with the infantry instead of running out on their own. The Chaos Warriors with great weapons, excellent kills across the board, 100 for this one, which is great, which is as much as one of my Chosen with great weapons. The other one, 137 kills and still had a lot of life. Absolutely beast mode there. The Chariot gets 94 kills. The Marauder Horseman killed 65, but that was all or just about all miners, so not really a great trade on my part, but it was a bit too much to micro for somebody who hasn't played much lately. The Rune Lord, not a whole lot of killing, neither the Runesmiths, but this combination makes the Dwarfs really tough when you have these three, so it's good to bring them even though they didn't do much of any killing. They're really not expected to be melee gods or anything like that. The miners got bled out completely. The dwarf warriors, just no match for chaos warriors, let alone chosen. That's why I bring these guys, because I know a lot of people go with the mainline dwarf warriors, or they might bring some miners, and they're going to cut through them, and that's what they did. His longbeards with great weapons. This one did well. These two did well, but two got steamrolled. So you would expect them to do better, but they didn't. The Grumbling Guard, though, beast mode, 85 kills, definitely worth it. The Rangers did pretty well, especially considering how much time and effort I spent disrupting them. The Goblobber, not so much. And this really isn't a good map for artillery. You really don't want to bring it with that giant ridge in the center. Just makes it hard to get a good clean shot with your artillery. And artillery overall, not very strong. So if you have map conditions that are going to make it even worse for them, so they can't shoot at max range or get a good shot off, you definitely want to rethink bringing them. But anyways, if you enjoyed the fight and the commentary and all that fun stuff, please hit like, please hit subscribe. Lets me know you want to see more. Until the next time, this is the Magnus, and I'll see you on the ladder.